Hello, welcome to Every Movie I Watched in 2024, in which we go through every movie that I watched in 2024 and are going to rate each on a scale of 1 to 7. But before we begin, I just want to say, if you enjoy this video, I also have 2 other videos on my Patreon, every book I read in 2024 and every game I played in 2024. And so, if you want access to them, all it'll cost is a single dollar over at patreon.com/super eyepatchwolf. Wow, what a deal. I can't believe the price is that low. And so on. Let's begin with the very first movie I watched in 2024. I saw this in the cinema just after New Year's because Ireland's cinema is weird. The Boy and the Heron. This is the brand new Studio Ghibli movie, or at least it was when it came out. And I would say I liked this film about a third as much as I liked Spirited Away when I saw that in the cinema, which is to say, I liked it a fucking lot. Spirited Away is one of those movies I credit with absolutely changing my life. I saw the trailer for it after going to see The Matrix Reloaded with an old friend, and we were both really stoned, and the trailer for Spirited Away came on, and we had no idea what we were looking at. Never heard of Hayao Miyazaki, never heard of Studio Ghibli, no concept any of that stuff existed. And then for 3 months, we were just like, oh, I can't wait to see that crazy looking Spirited Away movie. How many drugs do you think they were on when they made that, bro? The answer was none. I guarantee you no drugs were consumed in the making of Spirited Away. And so then when the day finally came to watch it, we did watch it, and it completely changed my life. Like, genuinely, I came out of that movie so full of wonder and love for animation. I was like, I want to do something adjacent to this for as long as I live. This is incredible. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. The Boy and the Heron is 1/3 as good as that, and that is to say, it is amazing. I really love this movie. I think a lot of Studio Ghibli's like kind of recent stuff has been great, and I still really like it, but I've not really connected with it as much as I did from like the movies from its classic era. Like I like When the Wind Rises or As the Wind Rises, but I just don't give a shit about planes. I'm sorry, Miyazaki. And I thought The Boy and the Heron was a really just lovely return to form of like that more magical era of Ghibli, and I just thought it was a whole lot of fun. I thought the Heron character was so weird and so not what the posters of that film implied, but I found myself just like constantly enamored by the world and everything around it. So yeah, beautiful film. I rated it 5 stars. There's actually I actually saw a bunch of 5-star movies at the start of this year, and the second was Godzilla Minus One. This is a straight up fucking beautiful movie. There's so many things about it that are special, but I think one of the biggest for me is like, you take Godzilla. We've all seen like Godzilla movies. We all know what Godzilla is, and I think like one of the biggest successes of this movie is that it takes Godzilla and turns it into something terrifying again. That might sound insane because like Godzilla's a giant fire-breathing lizard. It's already terrifying, but like you've seen it, you've watched, you know, the tail sweep and the roar and it breathing fire and stuff, and it's just become part of culture in a way that like when you see Godzilla now, you don't want to scream, you want to clap and point and be like, oh, it's Godzilla, hooray. This Godzilla does not feel like that. This Godzilla feels like a fucking world-ending walking catastrophe, and I love that. There's this shot right at the beginning of the movie, and it's the first time you see Godzilla, and it's from the perspective of like a soldier seeing him for the first time, and he just looks up, and just the fucking towering, monumental engine of destruction this creature is. It's beautiful. You take all that, and then you layer it with the fact that this is also about as introspective as Japan tends to get in movies about World War II and what a tragedy that was, and the disservice it did its soldiers, like, you know, the disservice all world leaders did their soldiers in that conflict. And it's fucking beautiful. It becomes this really gorgeous film about, you know, about what it means to be alive, about the value of being alive, and like why you shouldn't throw your life away, and grounding it all from the perspective of a failed kamikaze pilot. Absolutely beautiful. It also has like a love story that absolutely just kicked me right in the ass, and, you know, had me welling up near the end. So really, I thought this was a beautiful movie. I think the makers of this are working on another Godzilla movie or some other project that got me really excited. But yeah, no, it's like a no-brainer. Like, no matter who, like, I would show my parents this movie. It's got that wide an appeal, and I think it's just fantastic. The next movie I watched was, so 5 stars for Godzilla Minus One. The next movie I watched was All of Us Strangers. And how much does the following sentence appeal to you? Gay Silent Hill. Because if that does anything for you, then you should definitely go watch this movie. It is like weird and sad and slow, but in a way that I absolutely loved. I thought there was such a pathos to this movie. There was such a real kind of sorrowful tone to it. It's about this guy who meets like another guy, and they kind of want each other, but it's complicated, and it's all kind of embroiled in like how this dude is like coming to terms with the fact that his parents, you know, never really connected with him, and all this kind of stuff. And it's just so beautifully shot and directed. This is an atmosphere movie. This is a vibes movie. This is what you are going to it with. Now, I did recommend this film to 2 friends, and they came away from it being like, that was really sad. Why did you recommend us a sad movie? And so there is that aspect of it as well. So, you know, if you don't want a little bit of a downer, or you're not up for that, then maybe this isn't the movie for you. I absolutely loved it. I thought it captured really something specific about feeling like that you don't fit in, or that there's like that like you're worried people around you won't understand something about you. I think it really beautifully captures that and does it in this like very kind of, I say spooky, it's not a horror film at all. It's just got a spooky vibe, you know, and I, again, really, really loved it. 5 stars. The next movies I watched was Poor Things, and you know, I love Emma Stone. I think Emma Stone's great in whatever she does. I will watch her in anything she does. She was fantastic in this. The premise of the movie sounds kind of creepy. It's like a child's brain being put into an adult woman's body, and like her going through puberty as an adult woman. And so it's weird. It's a very sexual movie. There is a boatload of fucking all over the place here. But everyone in it is great, and the movie is so imaginative and interesting and strange. And Emma Stone is like just a beating heart at the center of it. She gives this incredibly like awkward but like honest and passionate performance as this person who doesn't really understand society or social norms, and it's great. It's so good. The first 20 minutes of it are like a weird art house movie, and I didn't particularly enjoy it. I know other people said it was like the favorite part of their movie, but just be ready to be ready for something weird in those first 20 minutes. But like if you enjoy that part, or if you can push through that part, I think everything else in it is like just really wonderfully imaginative, and I loved it. The next movie I watched was Jujutsu Kaisen 0. I watched this in 5 stars for Poor Things. I watched this in a hotel room at MagFest for the second time, and again, this is a fantastic movie. I think even if you haven't seen Jujutsu Kaisen, it kind of stands on its own. It's like a kind of nice introduction to it, and it is really beautifully animated. The only sour note about this movie, I think, is that it was basically made in 4 months, and at the cost of its animators' health. Studio Mappa has a bunch of problems about like just treating animators like shit, and it sucks because I would really like that those animators got like 3 times the time to work on this movie and were paid well, and then I could just give it an unapologetic like, this thing is fucking awesome. Unfortunately, I can't really do that, but it is still like, when you talk about movies like this, it always puts you in this difficult position of like, you want to honor the work these people have done, but you also have to acknowledge that it was done under circumstances that fucking suck. So like, as a reviewer, it's kind of an impossible situation. It's a great movie. I really, really enjoyed it, but at the same time, fucking pay your animators, give them decent working hours, you know. I rated 4 stars. The next 5-star movie. Okay, I saw a bunch of great movies at the start of this year. I promise I do have discerning tastes. You will all find that out about that in the movies to come. But the next one was or as my American watchers wish I called it, RRR. All right. this is a Hollywood action masterpiece, and this movie is incredible. If you have not seen it, it is just this unbelievably earnest action movie about two best friends who find themselves on the opposite side of a conflict, and it is incredible. It's got some of the wildest action I have ever seen in my life. There is a part where a man hurls a bus full of tigers and wild animals at his English, I don't know if slave owners is the right word, his English like overlords, and it's all about like the English taking over these parts of India and like robbing children, and the quest to get one of those children back, and how it leads these two best friends to be on separate sides of this conflict, and they clash and then they join together, and it's just the most beautiful cocktail of insanity. It is a wonderful movie, and I think it's 3 hours long. If you gotta break it into 3 episodes, it has those breaks so you can do it, but you 100% have to watch this movie. It's one of my favorite movies that I've watched all the year, and I absolutely fucking loved it. This is also the movie that was recommended to me by Wooly on Versus Wolves. Here's the Versus Wolves t-shirt. VersusWolvesEmporium.com if you would like to pick that, or any number of beautiful t-shirts up for yourself. But yeah, look, it lives up to the hype. It is as good as everyone says it is, and I cannot wait to watch it again. And I do not say that about a lot of 3-hour movies. 5 stars. The next movie I watched, and I feel like this is where I'm going to lose some of you, The Iron Claw. So this is about the Von Erich family, which is a really tragic wrestling family, and are very famous, very well known. For a time, were like kind of the biggest act in wrestling. And their story in real life is about to me it stands as like just the tragedy of the wrestling industry, and how it does just take people and fucking devour them, and that is unfortunately like what happened to these people. I would really recommend the Dark Side of the Ring episode about the Von Erichs. Now, all that said, I didn't actually like this movie that much. It's a tricky one, but I think a part of the problem is, like, you guys know I love wrestling. I love wrestling so much, and I love the history of wrestling, I love the politics of wrestling and the lore of wrestling, and I was already quite familiar with the story of the Von Erichs, and that's why a lot of this film really rang through to me as like a little insincere, or I didn't like the way they handled certain aspects of it. And a part of it was the dad. The dad is depicted as a real like villain in this movie. He wasn't that way in real life. He wasn't a perfect guy by any means, but he wasn't the person that they portrayed him to be in this movie. But the most egregious part of it for me is, I think they actually cut out one of the brothers, and so basically, you know, this is a story of a very awful fate that kind of a lot of the members of this family run into, and they actually cut out like the fourth brother basically, and he was this lad who, after his brothers, I'm really trying to avoid spoilers here, but after his brothers couldn't wrestle anymore, he was this small, asthmatic little guy, and he basically tried to enter the world of wrestling to like honor his brother's name. And he was not a good wrestler, and the world of wrestling just chewed him up. And it was like maybe the most tragic part of the entire story for me. And to just cut that guy's name out of existence, I just thought that was really sad, you know, like that was not cool. And like the director gave an interview about it where he was like saying, oh, if I'd included that brother, the film would have been too tragic. And then it's like, fuck off. Like what film are you trying to make in that case? You know, like either tell this story or don't. Now that said, like there were things I liked about this movie. I think Zac Efron is this just amazing glassy-eyed giant. He's like he's the oldest brother, and he's real simple and he's real nice, and I think he really carries this movie because you're just watching tragedy after tragedy hit this dude, and he pulls it off beautifully. So like, I don't think that it's a bad movie. I don't think I'm the right audience for it. I think the right audience for it is like a casual wrestling fan or someone who's never read up on the Von Erichs. But for me, it just didn't quite land, so I'm going to give it 3 stars. The next movie I saw was Moroboshi, and Moroboshi is I believe one, if not one of Studio Mappa's first original film projects. Studio Mappa, same blurb I gave about the Jujutsu Kaisen 0, great studio that doesn't treat its animators very well. And Moroboshi to me was like, it was okay, but I think it's like one of these movies where it is so desperately trying to be your name. And there are so many Japanese animated movies like this. Basically, a movie where you have a guy and a girl in a magical realism suburban setting with fantasy undertones that ends with them both running at each other and crying. And that is exactly what this movie is. It's about a town that gets trapped in time. So time just does not pass for this town, and them trying to figure out like what happens and if there's anything they can do to move forward, all from the perspective of this teenage dude and the girl. And you know, like, it's not like there's nothing here. I absolutely think there is. Like, for starters, it is a beautifully made movie. It looks fantastic. Studio Mappa do exactly what you think they're going to do and make a gorgeous movie. I'd say the thing I really liked about it is that it has a vibe. Like, there is a hopelessness to this town that is, like, really genuinely compelling, and I enjoyed that. Like, I thought that atmosphere was done really well. But now, as far as, like, the characters or the actual story or plot, none of it really hit home for me. It all just kind of felt like a movie trying to be other movies. It's not a bad movie by any means, but I wouldn't, like, I wouldn't be, like, screaming about it. So, yeah, 3 stars. The 10th movie I watched this year was House of a Thousand Corpses, and this is a Rob Zombie directed movie. And you know, I gotta say, I think Rob Zombie is a better director than people give him credit for. I think because, like, he is, you know, he is Dragula, and he is, like, you know, this music guy. I think people aren't willing to acknowledge that the dude can actually put together a really compelling sequence. And I think maybe the best example of that is the opening sequence to this movie, and it's about it's about a bunch of tourists arriving in this really fucked up town, and it's totally a movie that is very heavily influenced by Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think a problem sometimes when fans of something, like diehard fans of a genre or piece of, like, you know, piece of art, make their first couple of pieces of art, it's always them being like, okay, I want to make Chrono Trigger, or I want to make this thing, you know. And it's like, I use Chrono Trigger because there's so many, like, indie RPGs that are basically just Chrono Trigger without being as interesting as Chrono Trigger. And I think maybe this film suffers from that a little bit, but it really is worth watching for, like, just the first act, that first, like, 9-minute sequence or whatever it is. You have these, like, you have these assholes, these, like, real kind of you know, college kids going into this store and not having any idea how fucked up a place this is. You have Captain Spaulding, who's become like this, you know, you've probably seen him, he's like this actor and he has like this amazing clown makeup, and it really is just very good. And the rest of the film, like, totally does have its moments, but it's also a bit sloppy, and it also kind of drags in places, but it's still fun. It's still fun. I think, like, it's one of those flawed horror films that I still wouldn't have any trouble being like, yeah, if you give a shit about horror, then you should absolutely watch this. I gave it 3 stars. The next movie was Bramayugam, and this is an Indian horror movie about 2 men who basically get trapped in a spooky mansion and have to fight a goblin. And it is kind of fucking awesome. So what I would say is, I saw this movie in the cinema and I really, really enjoyed it for that reason. Again, this is another movie all about sound, all about atmosphere. And seeing it in that movie, or in that environment, in like that cinematic environment, that's how I would recommend seeing it. If you're watching it at home on Netflix on a laptop, I don't know that it hits as hard as that. But I still think, like, it's a really original and interesting movie. And again, this is one of those movies, if you care about horror, if you want to see something weird that you've never seen before, this is good. It is slow, but it gets there. The last 10 minutes of this movie are a fucking scream. And it has a really awesome, I guess now we know who the real monster is moment right at the end that I'm not going to spoil. But I loved it. I still think back to this movie pretty regularly and go like, yeah, Bramayugam's so wild. So yeah, 4 stars. The next movie I watched was Dune, and you know what? I'm not a huge sci-fi person. I like sci-fi. I don't love it. And while I appreciated that there was like a lot of beautiful scenery in this movie, and I thought little Timothy Chalamet was fun, and Zendaya was great, it just didn't do a whole lot for me. Like this was fine, and I appreciate that. Like a part of it is like, I found this movie very tropey, but the problem with saying that is that Dune invented most of those tropes. And the fact that I am not aware of them and have experienced them secondhand through other media, it's like, that's not Dune's fault, you know? But unfortunately, I think maybe it did just detract from my enjoyment a little bit. I think no matter how good a piece of cinema is, if there isn't a character that I can get my teeth into, then I generally am just going to... Something's not really going to click with me. And there was just no character in this that I was like, that's my guy, that person right there, you know? And obviously, a lot of people love this movie. It's been a huge success. And I think that's awesome, because it is weird, and it does look fucking cool, you know? So I'm happy it's successful. But no, it wasn't my favorite movie this year. So that's 3 stars for Dune. Oh boy. Okay. Next movie, Roadhouse 2024. This is the Conor McGregor vehicle. Look, this again, it's another tough one to talk about. Conor McGregor this year was found guilty of the sexual assault of a woman, and I just don't want to downplay that. I'd love to make a bunch of jokes about how bad he is in this movie, but he's like just someone I don't really want to talk about anymore. Like, I think we can all just leave this fucking asshole behind. There's nothing noteworthy about this movie except his performance in it. He is terrible in a way that I found like kind of compelling in a weird way, but like you take him out of it and there's just nothing to this movie. But you know what? Why don't we turn this into a review of the original Roadhouse movie? Because I know a lot of people don't know about it, and it's one of the greatest action movies of all time. The fucking ramp up of intensity of this movie, you literally go from bare-assed Patrick Swayze just fucking a very lucky lady in his Roadhouse to him ripping the throat out of a bad guy in like a 40-minute span, and it is so crazy. I know it's such a weird one to pick, but the original Roadhouse is like one of my favorite movies ever. It's fucking awesome. Go check that out. I give the original Roadhouse 5 stars. I give the 2024 version, you know what, I have it tear down as 3 stars, but given everything, let's just say 2 stars. Just avoid it. Just avoid it. The next movie I saw was Monkey Man. And Monkey Man, remember what I said earlier about the problem with fans of a movie making a movie? Monkey Man to me really felt like someone wanted to make a John Wick movie. And they did. Like, and there's literally a moment where he gets a gun. He's like, no way, the gun from John Wick. And it's okay. I think it's a fairly standard one of those movies. There are cool moments in it. And then there's moments that really frustrated me. He basically learns to fight by like a guy playing drums next to... So it's this movie all about like I guess a guy... Fuck, what was his even motivation? I think it's like a revenge movie? Yeah. It's basically about a guy trying to get revenge on some other dude, and he, you know, starts at the bottom and he has to fight his way up through this big organization and infiltrate it and all this kind of stuff. And it's okay. Like, some of the action scenes were pretty good, and then some of it I just found kind of not great. I was talking to a friend of mine, and this is a sequence where he learns to fight by some guy playing drums next to him, and he like punches along to the rhythm. And I thought that was the fucking stupidest thing I've ever seen, because look, you know, I like to fight. That's not how you learn to fight. But my friend, who did not give a fuck about that at all, was like, that was so cool. And yeah, maybe it was just a movie that didn't click with me. But that said, the bits that are good are really, really fun. And there is like a really cool bit where like, I don't know how to put this, a bunch of trans ninjas just rip apart a skyscraper, and that's really fun. And it has the whole cool, like, going from the street level all the way up to the top of the skyscraper where Monkey Man basically fights God. And so, like, it absolutely has its moments, but it's In terms of like action movies, I would recommend you. There's probably a lot I would recommend before Monkey Man. So yeah, I'd give it 3 stars. Next movie, and this is where I'm gonna lose so many of you. Fucking God. Suzume or Suzume, I can't remember. Look, okay. This is the new movie from the guy who made You're Here, Makoto Shinkai. And I used to be a big Makoto Shinkai fan. And I really love like Voice of a Distant Star. And I really loved Your Name. I thought Your Name was like a really just fun, cool movie. The problem is that I feel like since Your Name became like this massive box office sensation, the Japanese film anime industry has basically rotated around it, and I feel like everyone is trying to make that movie again. None more so than Makoto Shinkai himself. I think he made this, he made Weathering With You, and he made Your Name, and it's just like, I feel like those 3 are basically the same movie. It's like boy and girl, magical urban realism, they run at each other crying. Like that is those movies. And to me, I found this just to be like the absolute weakest one. I just didn't find anything to really like here. I think it's a gorgeous movie, but it's gorgeous in exactly the same way his other 2 movies were. And I guess what it would come down to is like, I think Makoto Shinkai is a genius, and I think he can do better than this. I think he can do better than just making the same movie over and over. And it's not that I dislike it. It's that I'm disappointed in it, and that I would love to see what is the next thing. Like, what is the next, like, what is going to be as impactful as Your Name? Nobody agrees with me on this. Everyone loves this movie because it's a nice movie with hot characters, and like, it's fine, but it's just not why I come to movies. Like, I don't want to see the same thing. The thing I did like about it is the animation for the chair. The whole gimmick of this movie is that the sexy dude is a chair. He turns into a chair and the chair like runs around. It's pretty cute. I like that. But yeah, just didn't do a whole lot for me. Would love to see that dude try other stuff. So I gave it 2 stars. I know it's harsh. I know people will be mad. But listen, let's talk about review scores for a second. Let's talk about the star ratings at the end of all these movies. The important thing to remember about them is that they're not important at all, and I'm just some fucking idiot on the internet. My opinion isn't any more valid than anyone else's at all, and I am aware of that. So when I'm giving you these ratings, I am not trying to give you a rating of how good I think this movie is. I'm just giving you a rating of how much I liked it. That's all it is. All it is. And so, like, you know, if you disagree with it, that's totally fine. This is just, if you know the kind of movies I like, then this is just an indication of how much I like this compared to other movies of that type I liked. And I just didn't think Suzume was like interesting. No one agrees with me. Everyone loves that movie. Everyone's probably right. I'm probably wrong. I don't fucking care. Okay, next movie. Okay, so now we are getting into the movies I watched for my social anxiety horror video. And the first was Watcher. And this is a movie about a woman who feels like she's being watched. She feels like someone in the apartment across from her is watching her. And it's an interesting movie because I think that feeling of like paranoia and like, are people looking at me? It really captures that very, very well. And it's like a beautifully shot movie. Like, it's really atmospheric, and it's really like, oh God, it's got such a like vibe to it. What I would say is the actual plot of the movie kind of goes exactly where you think it's going to go. And it really feels like one of those movies where like they decided the premise and everything else kind of came after that. And like, it's good. It's fine. It's like a Sunday afternoon film if you want to just chill out and watch something while not being necessarily groundbreaking. I gave it 3 stars. The next movie I watched was They Look Like People. This is another movie, and it's about basically a dude and his friend learning that, like, I guess reptilians are real. Not the racist reptilians, but like just there is a secret race of people that have infiltrated society, a secret race of aliens that have infiltrated society and are controlling them. It's funny, I actually gave this film 3 stars looking at it here, but I think I would actually, having had time to sit with it, I would probably bump it up to that. And what I think is really interesting about the movie is like, you never know if like this secret race of aliens that have infiltrated humanity is real or not, or if these people are just fucking crazy. And I think what's interesting is it really takes you down the path of these two men are like really down on their luck. They have kind of fallen into the cracks of society, and that's where like conspiracy can take hold of them. And I think that's a really powerful message, like now more than ever, because I feel like so often now it's like you have people left behind by society, and there's like a conspiracy industrial complex that's ready to just hoover them up. And I think this film was made in like 2017 or something, so it's like quite even ahead of its time like that. I don't think like it's the most enjoyable movie, and I think in some ways it's not like the best made movie, but it's a movie that stuck with me. I think the message of it like is strong enough that I kept thinking about it throughout the year, and I'm still thinking about it now. Like when I saw Watcher on the list there, it took me a second. I was like, Watcher? What? Oh yeah. But the second I saw they look like people, I was like, oh, that fucking movie. So yeah, I'm gonna bump that up to 4 stars. The next movie I saw, and I watched it for the anxiety horror video, Beau Is Afraid. I feel like before I had watched Beau Is Afraid, I heard nothing but negative things about it. I heard that it wasn't really a horror movie. I heard that, like, you know, it's too long, it's this, it's that. And that's why I was surprised to sit down with it and find myself just enraptured for nearly all of it. The things people say about it are true. It's not a traditional horror movie. It is too long, especially in the middle. But it tapped into a part of my brain that maybe only a couple of other movies have tapped into, and I would say, I would say All My Friends Hate Me is one of them. That real just other people dislike me, and that is a nightmare. And I just thought it was such a horrifying and beautiful movie because of that. I love how there's like a nightmarish quality to the movie, because what they'll do is they'll find like the social anxiety horror, they'll find like the relatable daily horror, and then they'll just push it to the extreme. I talk all about it in the social anxiety horror movie. I think it's fucking brilliant. I think it's one of my favorite movies I've ever seen. It is the first movie I read this year or last year that I rated 6 stars. And when I rate a movie 6 stars, what that basically means is like, this is not just an excellent version of a movie, or like a movie like this. It is doing something different or elevating it in a way that I had not previously experienced. 5 stars is like, oh, this is totally going to be a contender for best version of this I experienced this year. 6 stars is a movie or, you know, game or whatever that is not just like meeting that threshold, but like pushing it up. It is raising the standard for all other horror movies for me. And for me, Beau Is Afraid, like what it did is solidified that idea of social anxiety horror. And I fucking loved it. I think it's an excellent movie. I think everyone should watch it. I think you should absolutely be prepared to not enjoy it. But I also think some of you are going to watch it and see in it what I did and just be in awe of what a fucking insane movie it is. God, I hope someone gives Arya Star movies money to make a movie again, because this lost like $32 million or something insane. I liked it, Ari. I thought it was pretty good. Yeah. Okay. The next movie is Compliance, and I really like this movie. One of the for like a lot of reasons. One of it is like I just have a massive crush on Dreamer Walker. I just think she's so pretty, and I think she is fantastic in this movie. She is so good, and it is a really horrifying look at social coercion and how we are so much more malleable than we think we are. And I still think, because this Compliance is based on a true story, and it's basically a bunch of fast food workers get a call one day that one of their people is like, you know, in trouble, and that she's after robbing food, and they have to take her into the back, and they have to take her phone away from her. And it is about like just the increased kind of And it's all through the phone. It's all this cop on the other end of a phone telling them like, oh, now you have to do this, and now you have to do this, and now you have to do this. And they do it. Like, they do every bit of it. And what's so fucking horrifying, like, it's all a true story. It's a true story that happened over and over. Again, you guys might be familiar with it from my social anxiety horror movie. And I just thought its execution was great. I think it has come under criticism for, like, sexualizing Dreamer Walker, like, a little bit too much. And I get it. I understand. I think that is kind of a fucking weird thing to do, especially considering this is a true story. So I don't want to, like, ignore that side of it. But it is, like, if you want just a gripping, like, edge of your seat watch, I think it's a really, really good movie. The next movie I watched was one of the worst movies I've watched this year, and the fact that I say one of is real, that is really saying something. It's a movie called Unsane. I think this is a remake of a French movie, but I'm not sure about that. And it's basically about a woman who gets trapped in an insane asylum, and she basically goes to visit for, like, a job thing, and there's a mix-up, and she gets just put into the insane asylum. And it really feels like a movie where that was, like, the initial premise, and then they never thought about it beyond that. And the places it goes are so ridiculous and so, like, just stretching the, you know, believability of the world of this movie to a place that I just hated. Like, I just really didn't think it was well told at all. And I thought the leaps in logic that it asks the audience to make, like, you can do anything in a movie. You know, you can do anything as long as it makes sense in accordance with the world. But it's meant to be, like, this really grounded, gritty movie. But then, like, the leaps in logic are so insane, and how any of this happened is so crazy, and I thought it was really, really poor. I also thought it was a really callous movie, in two ways. Number one, I thought the way, like, it depicted people suffering from mental illness was just really cruel and really cold, and there was no love for them. And then I also thought that it's a movie with no love for its characters. I think you can make shocking movies. I think you can make movies where characters really suffer. But the thing I always love to see is I love a movie to care about its characters to some degree, to show their humanity, to show the fact that, like, there is something. You know, even like Beau Is Afraid, a movie that spends 3 hours torturing this one character, you can see there's moments where the movie really sympathizes with him, and there's moments where the movie, like, shows you what he's about, and there's just none of that in this movie. I think it's a callous movie, and I just didn't enjoy it at all. I thought it had nothing to offer. I didn't think it was scary. I didn't think it was interesting. I thought it was a straight up, like, a waste of time of a movie, which is why I give it 1 star. That's the kind of movie I give 1 star to. A movie where I come out of it and I'm like going, I might as well not watch that movie. I am not changed or different in any way because I watched that movie. I just feel like that movie had no effect on me at all, and that is what I thought of Unsane. The next movie I watched was a really weird one, but pretty interesting. It was called Saiko Large Family, and Rainbot did a really good video about this that you should check out. But you should check out the movie first and then watch her video. And it basically went viral during the year for this really horrifying scene where there's, like, there's a family just all having dinner, and next thing, like, the daughter gets up and she just starts attacking the father. And there's something so visceral and frightening about her attacking the dad, and it feels real, and it feels weird, and it's a really, like, it's a fucking brilliant scene of horror. What I would say is I think maybe that scene is the high point of this movie, but it's all about, like, going into this family and the weird things that happen around them, and it's quite slow, and there's not a lot that happens for a while, but it also when it hits, it really hits. And I would say, like, you know, there are movies that can be worth watching for, like, a single scene. This movie is that to me. And then, like, if you want to dig into the fucking bizarre lore behind it, this is actually, it's, like, actually one of, like, 8 in a series of movies. You know, you can watch the Rainbot video, and if you just Google Rainbot and Psycho the Large Family, it'll come up. But shout out to Rainbot, I've been watching her for years, and Yeah, it's a cool movie. I'm glad I saw it. I wouldn't say it was an especially exciting movie, and I wouldn't say it's a movie that I enjoyed a whole lot when I was watching it. It is a movie I still think about a lot. So it's got that, like, you know, bite onto you quality. The next movie I watched was Shiva Baby. And this is a movie where a lady basically has to turn up to a large family gathering, and she's kind of a train wreck, and it's all her relatives asking her, how's life going? Do you have a boyfriend? Are you getting married? Or like, you know, all this kind of stuff. And it is the complete, like, increasingly catastrophic results of that. And I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was really super fun. It's tense and it's weird while never, like, you know, going like overboard. And like, it's also very funny in that, like, it's kind of, there's shit that happens and you're like, oh Jesus fucking Christ, you know, not this. And the cast are great, the performances are great. It didn't leave me with like anything particularly that I hadn't seen before, but it was like a decent version of that, and I wasn't bored during it. Like, it gave me a good time. So I would say, yeah, you know, good movie. Wouldn't be raving about it, but yeah, 3 stars. The next movie I watched was The Invitation, and this is a horror movie where a group of friends are reuniting in like this house in the Hollywood Hills for the first time in years. And it's got a really good setup in that, like, they're all reuniting and they're all like, oh, it's so good to see you. And, like, you know, you can tell they all have, like, different histories with certain people dating certain people and all this kind of stuff. And there's one person there who the main character doesn't recognize. And so it's like, who is this person? What's their deal? Are they, like, good? Or, like, you know, what's going on here? And it is a perfectly acceptable version of that. It goes, if you've seen any movies like this, it goes kind of exactly where you think it's going to go, but there are like good moments and it does have like a few creepy scenes. The only thing I think this film really suffers from is that it is a very similar premise to what I would argue is a much, much better movie, and that is All My Friends Hate Me, which, you know, I have also watched this year, is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love it so fucking much. And to me, The Invitation kind of feels like it feels like All My Friends Hate Me without everything that is brilliant about that movie. It's like more, it's the exact same setup with the person that you don't recognize also being there, but it takes a much more conventional route and I think is much less effective because of it. It's still okay. Like, I have it rated here as 2. I think 2 is maybe a little harsh. I'd give it a 3. If you want like a, you know, it's one of them Sunday afternoon horror movies. Do you guys do that? Is anyone else, like, I really like to watch a horror movie on a Sunday afternoon. I watched Longlegs recently, which I'll talk about in next year's movies video. The next movie I watched is I'm Thinking of Ending Things. And man, I don't know what I thought of that movie, and that is rare. So that is to say, I don't think I loved it. I don't think I hated it. I think it was taking some swings, you know. It was really trying some stuff, but for like as surreal and like atmospheric as it could be, and you know, I love that shit, I also just thought it was one of those movies where it was really trying to be weird for the sake of weird, and there was times when I really felt like it had meaning, and there's times where like it just did not land for me at all. It's about this woman going to meet her boyfriend's parents, and she's not really sure she's into him. She arrives at the house. The parents are a little weird. She's a little weird. He's a little weird. Things get progressively weirder. Normally that kind of shit is my jam, but I think just something about this just didn't really hit home for me. I don't know. It's not a bad movie. Like, it is definitely interesting, and I think it's definitely the kind of movie that, you know, if I really sat down with it and deep dove into it, I could probably find some really interesting stuff here, and I'm sure people have made videos to that effect. But in terms of like the initial watching, yeah, I thought this was fine. I gave it 3 stars. The next movie is The Stepford Wives. Oh, fucking hell. Okay, so The Stepford Wives is this kind of very culty horror movie, and I had heard about The Stepford Wives for years. I had, you know, everyone's heard of that, like, oh, she's a real Stepford wife. Like, it's this community full of these women who are all these perfect wives, and they serve their husbands perfectly, and it's all a little creepy and a little strange, and what is going on there? And so I went into this movie really thinking that it was going to be a kind of schlocky, 70s, 80s horror movie. And I think what I really did not expect is for this film to actually be a really excellent movie about like the erasure of identity, and I think the horror of having yourself overwritten and being forced to conform to the people around you. I was absolutely blown away by this movie. This movie was hated by pretty much everyone when it came out in the 80s. It was it was ignored. It was reviewed poorly. No one went to see it, and I think it just came out at the wrong time where like the feminist movement was really, really kind of taking off in like a mainstream way, and they hated this movie, but then the conservatives also hated this movie, and then film critics didn't want to like it, and it's like all this kind of stuff. But to me, and again, like, I'm not a lady, and I don't want to claim I know what's sexist and what isn't, but the sexist parts of this movie feel so intentionally sexist and so grounded in saying something that, like, I loved it. I really thought it was a beautiful movie. I thought it was beautifully shot. I thought it was genuinely frightening in places, and I thought it was excellent. I think more people should check out this movie. I gave it 5 stars. The next movie that I gave 5 stars to was Love Lies Bleeding, and man, oh god. Okay, look, you guys know that I have a soft spot for women who could fold me in half, and let me tell you, this movie delivered on that. It was actually, let me grab the names of the movies. It is Kristen Stewart, and it is who looks like amazing in this movie, and it is Katie O'Brien, who also looks fucking amazing in this movie. And it's basically the two of them meeting in this gym, and Katie O'Brien is like this bodybuilder, and she wants to enter this like bodybuilding contest, and then she like falls for Kirsten, and the two of them have like just really hot, cool sex because they're both hot and cool, and it's awesome. The entire way through this movie, they're just soaked in this fucking like neon tinged drug taking, like just really amazing like mid 80s nightmare, and it's so well shot, it's so pretty, it just pounds along with like such a pace that like I fucking loved it. And it's just, I never even thought about looking at my watch the entirety of this movie. It just moves at such a pace that there's something insane happening every couple of minutes. There was a lad and his boyfriend beside me in the cinema, and at one point he just goes, "Oh!" and God bless that man. That's the best review I could give this movie. That sound, and I really, really loved it. And I would say as well, like, Katie O'Brien, gorgeous creature, and I like what she looks like a lot. But it's very rare that you get to see a woman in any kind of movie with a body type like that be portrayed in this really kind of beautiful way, like have the camera adore her like it does in this movie. And I never seen anything like that. And yes, that totally is my shit, but I think, in general, cinema could be a lot more loving to a lot of different people with a lot of different types of bodies, like not just super muscled or whatever. And I thought it was really fucking cool to see that, because I think, I really think human bodies are beautiful, and I would like to see more kinds of bodies portrayed with the kind of love that you see, like, the traditional body type portrayed with. And I think this movie does a really good job in that. So yeah, movie was an absolute fucking scream every second of the way, so I would give it 5 stars. The next movie I saw was Kotoko. Whoa. Okay. So there's a kind of horror movie that I drop into the category of day ruiner. And this is the kind of movie you only want to watch it late at night. And if you are not down for this kind of movie, if you are not used to like extreme horror movies, you do not want to watch it at all. Kotoko is a movie where a woman has this condition that whenever she encounters another person out on the street, she sees them, but then she also sees a double of them, like a duplicate, and the duplicate is going to try and attack and kill her. And it's just an illusion, but it means she never knows if someone is trying to hurt her or not. And it is a fucking nightmare of a movie. It is absolutely horrifying. I think I might have cut the section of it in the anxiety horror movie, but in the anxiety horror video, but it is like real just where the movie goes and what it says about this person. And like there's this final shot that is so fucking heartbreaking. It is a really, really difficult movie that I could recommend to basically no one unless I knew them really well. But it was extremely well made, and I think what it kind of ends up saying about like perception and the nature of reality was like it hit me really, really hard in a way that I can't go into because it's like massive spoilers. But yeah, if you're like that kind of extreme fringe horror fan, sure, go watch it with every warning I have given you. 4 stars. The next movie I watched this year was Society, and I love Society. I think it's a kind of trash movie, and it comes so close to saying something really cool and meaningful, but never quite gets there. But what it's basically this kid is growing up in this rich family, and shit ain't right. He's seeing things he shouldn't be seeing. He's having these bizarre hallucinations. He can't understand what's happening. So like a really great moment from it to like give you the taste of the kind of movie it is that there's a part where like he walks into the bathroom and his sister's in the shower, and he can't see her because it's like a really thick shower door and you can only see the silhouette. But the silhouette of her looks like her torso is on frontways, but her like below the waist is on backwards. And it just looks fucking weird. And you only see it for a second and you're like, what was that? What was that? This film is the extension of that. It is taking that like kind of paranoid body horror that everything around you just isn't quite right, and the places it goes with it are fucking insane. It's one of those movies where I think it's so nearly brilliant, but there's a few kind of things that hold it back a little bit. Like it's a little too long and it's a little clumsy, but it's also man, the final scene is just like nothing I have ever seen in my life, and it's kind of incredible. I actually have it down as 3 stars here. I'm gonna raise that up to 4 stars because it is fucking cool. The next movie I watched was All My Friends Hate Me. I have talked about this movie twice in videos, once on a favorite things and once as the crescendo of the social anxiety horror movie. Saying my videos have crescendos, I feel like, is really giving myself a lot of credit. The end of the social anxiety horror movie video, and I think it's an absolutely fucking incredible movie. I love it so much. I don't know that I have ever felt a movie in this specific way just reach its hand into my brain and just claw at my very personal insecurities. But it does that so masterfully, and it just holds you the entire way, and God, it's so fucking good. The story is, as I mentioned, a guy shows up to his, I think, 30th birthday, where he's meeting a bunch of his friends at a mansion, but they're being a little weird. There's something not quite right here, and there's someone there he doesn't recognize, a stranger. And the movie is just this slow pulling of the thread of what's happening. And God damn, it is fucking incredible. The like level of passive aggressiveness in this movie is just, it's amazing. I talk about it in the social anxiety horror movie video, but there's a moment where like, things feel a bit weird and he doesn't know what's going on. And then like he goes to the bathroom and one of his friends comes after him and she's like, just so you know, you're not doing very well. And he's like, what? And she's like, you've been a bit shit this weekend, haven't you? And it is, oh my God, like I worry so much about that shit. Like I worry so much that like just, I'm a pain in the ass to my friends or whatever. And seeing that emotion so perfectly captured by this movie, that is the purpose of horror to me. That is ultimately what horror can do for us. It can take our fears and contextualize them and let us understand them a little better. And also let us understand that, like, we're not the only ones that feel that way. That everyone feels that way, that everyone has these gnawing fears and insecurities and terrors, and I think this movie does that so beautifully. On top of all that, every cast member, fucking phenomenal. Shot beautifully, directed beautifully, the dialogue, the pacing, everything. I love this movie so much. 6 stars, one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Absolutely brilliant movie. That is the second 6-star movie that I gave it. That's second 6 stars year. If people are asking what is a 7-star movie to me, a 7-star movie is not a movie that like elevates your opinion on the type of thing it is. It more just elevates your opinion on art. It has like a profound effect on you to the point that you are a different person going out of it than you were going in. I don't think I awarded 7 stars to anything this year, but let's just keep going and see. Okay, next movie, Revenge of the Nerds. I mainly watch this movie because I feel like I hear it mentioned once every 2 years in books by comedy writers I read, and it's alright. It's kind of shitty. It's like, it's that kind of mean-spirited 80s comedy where, like, it's pretty like misogynistic, and it's like not. It's like laughing at its characters as opposed to rooting for them through like I don't know, like tough situations or whatever. I mean, I totally see it as like something that kind of has its place, but I think it's just aged a little too poorly and was never very cleverly written in the first place for it to really be something worth watching now. So yeah, it's fine. I gave it 2 stars. The next movie I watched this year was Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation. This is a movie about a guy whose excuse me, whose special ability is bugging, as in like hiding audio equipment and bugging people and monitoring them. And it's this movie about him getting into that world, and he is like this expert audio engineer and just this incredible person who can penetrate information and find things out until eventually he captures something he doesn't want to have known about. And it's really disturbing, and it's really weird, and it's a fucking excellent movie. It is absolutely a slow burn. Like, it's not a movie that rushes itself. It's a movie that really takes its time and it immerses you in this world. But man, and it's also like, it's not necessarily a horror movie, but when it kicks in and when you get to the horrific part, fucking hell, it is a shocker, and it is great. It's Francis Ford Coppola, so obviously it's extremely well directed and just never gives you a moment for your attention to wander or anything. So yeah, I thought it was a fantastic movie. 5 stars. The next movie was The First Slam Dunk, and I was coming to this maybe having read the first 18 chapters of Slam Dunk, and this movie is a movie of the final match, the last match in all of Slam Dunk, and it's a weird one. I did have more trouble following this than I thought I would. I wasn't familiar with the characters, I wasn't familiar with their different stories, and I actually had trouble like being like, well, wait, which character is this, which character is this? And that might be due because I'm a little bit face blind. I'm just not good at telling faces apart, never have been. It's caused me all kinds of problems. Sometimes I have a bunch of friends who cosplay, and sometimes I literally don't know it's them. They'll come up to me in cosplay, and I'll just be like, oh, hello, would you like a photo? And they'll be like, John, shut the fuck up. And I'll be like, oh god, Rebecca. And like, that's how that goes. That said, fucking phenomenal movie. It's so full of heart and like emotion, and Jesus Christ, the last 2 minutes of this movie, I felt like my skin was going to come off. It was just so good and so like just furious in this last attempt to like basically drive home victory. And I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. And even though, like, I didn't have the context to understand it from Slam Dunk, it also, like, solidified a fuck, I really need to read Slam Dunk, as if I didn't have that already from Vagabond. But, yeah, 5 stars, no question. Easiest 5 stars I handed out all year. The next movie I watched, and this was a rewatch of a movie I'd already seen, Speak No Evil. Speak No Evil is a fucking nightmare of a movie. It's one of the most horrifying movies I've ever seen in my life. It is absolutely a day ruiner. It is about a couple that meet another couple on holidays, and then they end up visiting that couple in their home in, I think, the rural Netherlands. I am so sorry if I have that wrong. And things get weird. Things get weirder. It keeps going. It is an amazing movie. It is a really awful movie, and I think what I love about it is it kind of touches on the same thing, and I'll talk about this again. We are still in the spot of, like, social anxiety horror movies. It touches on that thing that scared me so much about the Stepford Wives, and it's that idea of erasure. It's that idea of someone finding a way to peel back the layers of who you are and condition you to believe something else. And I think it's fucking weird to me to compare those two movies and the specific things they do, but I really feel that that's it. Like, I really feel it is those movies. And yeah, I loved it. I think it is a horror movie that goes places so few other movies do, but does so with, like, an intention and meaning. Like, you could make a really violent, fucked up movie. That's easy. Like, anyone can do that. But to do it and to layer it with as much uncomfortable implication of this, I think it's one of the best horror movies ever created. I still have not watched the remake. Maybe this year. Maybe I'll give that a watch soon. Maybe that'll be my next Sunday afternoon horror movie. But yeah, I gave this 6 stars. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely pushes up what I think horror is capable of, and yeah, I loved it. The next movie is a movie that I love, but it's not a very good movie. It's Rock and Rule, and I talked about this at the beginning of the last Favorite Things video. Rock and Rule is a fucking bizarre movie for no one. It is the creation of a bunch of lunatics, and they made something kind of terrible and kind of amazing. It is this 80s animated horror movie, not horror movie, sorry, just this 80s animated movie about dog people playing in a band, and then somehow one of them becomes a key to opening up a portal to hell where Satan comes out of, and it is so strange. Tonally, it's all over the fucking place. There's parts that it's like a real, hey guys, oh no, I'm on roller skates. And then parts of it becomes like this really raunchy sex comedy. And then parts of it are just so strange. I don't think it's a particularly good movie. The characters aren't really that well developed. The plot barely makes sense. But it is unlike anything else I've ever seen. And if you're unlike anything else I've ever seen, you're at least going to be a 3. And I have it down here as a 3 because I don't think it's a very good movie, but god damn it, I really want to push it up to a 4, just being how weird and fucking bizarre it is. It's if you care about animation, if you have an interest in, like, the oddities of animation, then yeah, I think it deserves a shot. It's weird, it's boring in parts, it's nonsensical in parts, but it is so uniquely itself that I kind of can't help but love it a little bit. Yeah, fuck it, 4 stars. Mr. Oregon. Mr. Oregon is one of the straight up most disturbing documentaries I've ever seen. It is about a man who traps people with his car in front of an old antique store and threatens not to let them go until they pay him X money. And it is about the documentary maker getting, like, kind of interested in who this person is, and he's like, as he does, this person, Mr. Oregon, gets interested in him. And there's this moment, and it's like the centerpiece of the whole movie. And remember, this is a documentary where he receives a key from Mr. Oregon, and Mr. Oregon's like, someone in your life has reached out to me and given me this key. And I just want you to know that there's someone in your life close enough to you to have access to your home that gave me this key. Think about that. And then David, the documentarian, takes the key home, and he's like, "There's no way this is real. No way this is real." And then he fits it into his lock, and it fucking fits. Just fucking mind blowing. Like, how terrifying is that? The whole film is great. It's really well shot. It's really atmospheric. It really captures the mentally unraveling as David. As like, he really gets upset trying to deal with this impossible human, and then, like, you know, there is a comeuppance in the end that feels great, and I really, really loved it. Apparently, after this movie, Mr. Organ, the real life person, would go to the cinema and watch it in, like, cinemas full of people and just loudly talk about how he wasn't portrayed fairly. But watching this movie, I don't know if there's any other way to portray a man like that. He is a nightmare, an absolute nightmare person. But yeah, totally recommended. I'd recommend it to pretty much anyone. Like, it is horrifying, but in a very human, relatable way that I think, like, is not going to, like, keep you awake at night. But it is fucked up, and it is great. Next movie number 37, Demon City Shinjuku. This is another movie I talked about in my favorite things videos. I don't think this movie is especially good in terms of story, characters, or plot. None of that's really going to hit home with you, I don't think. But goddamn, this film has a fucking vibe. It is just so cool, and the look of it is so beautiful. And to me, that is what's special about this movie. And I think sometimes, like, when you talk about vibe movies, there's a temptation to rate it lower because it does like vibe and atmosphere. That's what it does, as opposed to story and characters or anything else. But I don't know, like, I think of this movie still, and it just makes me happy. It makes me happy that something looks like this, that something feels like this. There is like a center point of, like, that neon tinged 80s Japanese skyline that this movie absolutely nails, and I think it's fantastic for that. It's not one I'd recommend to everyone, but if you're into visuals, if you're into tone, it's a fantastic movie, and I would give it 4 stars based on that. I don't think I gave Mr. Organ a rating. That's a 5 stars. So yeah, 5 stars for Mr. Organ. And 4 stars for Demon City Shinjuku. Next up, we have Gonjiam Haunted Asylum. I think that's Korean, and it is Korean, and apologies that I'm definitely butchering that pronunciation. This is very much like a kind of Asian found footage horror movie. A bunch of people wander into a haunted insane asylum. And this is one of those movies where, like, it was a real TikTok movie there for a minute. There was a lot of people recommending it and being like, oh, one of the most fucked up scary movies of all time. And I guess I'm just dead inside, because my main problem with it is I just didn't find it that scary. It's like, it's a lot of scream horror. It's a lot of, like, you know, oh, what was that? What was that? What was that? And like camera shaking all over the place. It does have 1 or 2 genuinely profoundly frightening moments, and I don't want to spoil that for you. But what I'd say, if you've seen movies like Norai the Curse, or, you know, kind of stuff like that, it is very much a film in that vein. And I particularly don't enjoy those movies. It's rare that I really love a found footage movie, but if you do, a lot of people do really like this movie. So yeah, I'd recommend it. Personally, I'd recommend it in that case. Personally, I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was good, if not great. But yeah, it was fine. I watched a lot of horror movies this year. I also watched Infested. And Infested... Wait, I think I have the name of that movie wrong. I do. The actual name of this movie is Infested, or Verminous. And this is a movie about a building that gets infected with giant spiders, and I do not like spiders. Spiders are my weakness, and I thought this was a really fun take on, like, the spider movie. If you've seen, like, Arachnophobia back in, like, the early 90s, it is a movie like that. And I actually thought there was this really, like, kind of quite, like, beautiful message to the whole thing, in that it is this story of this guy him and his sister are arguing over whether they should, like, sell their apartment. And the reason he wants to keep it, it's because it's the apartment that his mother owned that they grew up in. And what I really kind of liked about this movie is I felt like there was this theme to it, where it's like, if you don't abandon something when you are meant to abandon it, it is going to become infested. It is going to start rotting and becoming wrong. And that to me is the same message at the heart of like Silent Hill. And this movie does that, except with giant horrifying spiders. Now, I think the only reason I might gonna ding it a little bit is because when you start off, the spiders are like that size. They're like tiny. And by the end of the movie, you are getting monster-sized spiders. And at that point, they stop being scary to me. Because to me, what's scary about spiders is that they're big enough to be a nuisance, but small enough to be everywhere. So like, you know, you picture a tarantula, and it's big, but it's also small enough to be fucking just in your shoes or like in your light or just whatever. And there's something really scary about that to me. But by the end of it, when we're basically fighting like dog-sized spiders, it loses some of that fear for me, so I would ding it for that. But other than that, I thought it was a really fun movie, and it's got like a really fun cast of characters, and it was just really well done. So yeah, I would give that 4 stars. Okay, next is the worst movie I watched this year, and something that I couldn't even get to the end of because it was just that fucking stupid. It was a movie called Open Wide, and this is basically a documentary about mewing, about like jaw size, and I was interested to watch it because like I'm like, I don't know if I believe that stuff, and I've seen like, I've read like papers and stuff about it and how it's not actually very anything, like there's very little science backing it up. And so when I went into this documentary, I thought it would kind of explore that side of it. And it was a documentary that was basically a giant advertisement for all this shit. And it basically concentrates on the central figure in this whole movie. And it was like a really one-sided account of his stories and all his like anecdotal evidence of why this stuff works. And I thought it was terrible. I thought it was a terrible documentary. I think documentaries, when they're investigating a, you know, scientific or medical concept like this, it has to be objective to a certain level, but it wasn't. And I thought it really spread a lot of bad information, and to the point that like I just turned it off. I just thought it was like a really, really terrible piece of film. And yeah, I gave it 1 star. I really did not like this movie. The next thing I watched was Jim Henson Idea Man, and this is what it sounds like. It is a documentary of Jim Henson, and I think what it really gave me an appreciation for is I always thought of Jim Henson as this incredibly creative, imaginative person, but Ideas Man really made me see him as like a master craftsman, as someone who could, like, with just so much infinite skill and passion for what he did. And I loved it. I really, really loved it. And it also, like, there's this amazing bit where Jim Henson basically falls into becoming a puppeteer. Like, he never meant to get into puppets. And if fucking Jim Henson didn't think that he was meant to be a puppeteer, I think that's this really hopeful message for everyone, where it's like, hey, listen, you might not just realize what you're a master at yet. We all got potential. We all got shit inside of us that we're great at. And I love that. I thought it was an amazing movie. I really, really loved it. And so funny. Like, some of the unhinged shit that Jim Henson came up with long before, like, anything we know him for was just so incredible to look at. And yeah, I thought it was brilliant. Then we have Legend. Oh, I gave that 5 stars. Legend of the Galactic Heroes. My conquest is the Sea of Stars. You can hear me talk all about this on that episode of Versus Wolves. Just Google Versus Wolves, Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Long story short, this is a game of chess between 2 people, except the people are spaceships, or the chess pieces are spaceships, and it is brilliantly told. It really, to me, watching this movie was like seeing how much Legend of the Galactic Heroes could be found in everything. And I'm still only like 25 episodes into Legend of the Galactic Heroes. I will go back to it at some point, but yeah, that is absolutely such a massively influential and just brilliant series, and I thought this was a really brilliant introduction to it. I gave it 5 stars. Oh, sorry, I've been talking for like an hour and a half straight. Okay, the next film is Kinds of Kindness. This is another Yorgos Lanthimos movie, and it is fucking so strange. This is the same dude who made who made Poor Things, and it definitely feels like a movie he made in between making other movies on a bunch of random sets. It has all these like all these kind of disparate stories, and they're very strange and they're very weird. But Emma Stone is in it again, and she is a delight, as she always is. And Hunter Schafer is also in it, and she is just as majestic and beautiful as she is in everything. And it's a really fun movie. I would say like it's more a kind of pleasant watch it and be like, oh yeah, that's kind of funny, or like that's kind of interesting. It's not really a like, you know, break you open kind of movie. It's more like it's another Sunday afternoon movie, and the stories cross over in a lot of really weird and fun ways. And there is one of the funniest cuts I have ever seen. I'm not going to spoil it, but basically one character is like, can we watch the videotape? And another character is like, I don't know if that's a good idea. And then the cut to the next scene just fucking obliterated me. So yeah, I like it. If you like Yorgos' stuff, then you should absolutely watch this movie. It didn't blow me away. It was more just like a pleasant experience, and I gave it 3 stars. Next movie I watched was The Bad Guys. And I think The Bad Guys was a fucking incredible movie for maybe the first 15 minutes, and then after that I thought it was a pretty okay movie. The first 15 minutes are like this insane police chase, and it's so imaginatively framed, and the characters are all like really interesting and fun, and I loved it. I thought it was beautiful, and like the rest of the movie is beautiful as well. I just think after this first act, it does kind of fall into becoming like a very kind of standard kids movie, and it's well done, and like the characters are all charming, and from what I understand, a bunch of people want to fuck that wolf, but like I think there was an energy to it that was maybe a bit lost after that first act, but still I thought it was good, and like it is a beautiful movie. Like we so live in the era of fucking stunning looking 3D movies, and I'm so happy. Thank you, Spider-Verse, we owe you so much. The next movie was The Substance, and you know what? That is a scream of a fucking movie. Me and Brian saw The Substance just one evening. We only went to see it because there was nothing else we wanted to see. We didn't know anything about it, and all I knew was that Demi Moore is in it, and I've always had a little bit of a thing for Demi Moore, and she looks as beautiful as ever. Holy shit, that woman has aged so well, which is ironic because this movie is about like aging in Hollywood. It's about this old actor who's not getting hired for things anymore, and she gets offered the substance, this liquid that can turn her young again. And oh my fucking god, I really think you just need to go into this movie not knowing anything else and just let it take you. Just go down the alleys that this movie is bringing you down. Just let it happen. And it is wild. If you do not like body horror, steer the fuck clear. If you do, get ready, because it is just a scream, and I really enjoyed it. It was one of my favorite like cinema experiences all year. It's not a perfect movie. It has pacing issues. It is at times too ridiculous, but I enjoyed it so much. I gave it 4 stars. Another 5-star movie this year, I saw The TV Glow. I absolutely adored this movie. I thought this movie is one of the most beautiful and heartbreaking things I saw all year. Like it was just, it's about these two friends, right? And a lot of what it's about a lot of things, but it's about like nostalgia and this idea of like, say you get into a game or a TV show with a friend, and then you and this friend are more into this thing than you have ever been into anything, and you get super tight and super close with this person because you both love this thing so much. And it's these two people, and they get really into what is essentially like a kind of Buffy the Vampire Slayer / Are You Afraid of the Dark style movie. And some of the best parts of the movie are you're seeing those old episodes, and they look so weird and fucking crazy and strange, you know? And you really feel them both getting into it, and then getting into their friendship, and then one of them disappears. And it's what happens after that. And it's not a simple movie. It's not a movie that I think like has a really coherent plot or is like easy to follow, but it is a movie that you absolutely feel. And there's so much to dig into with it. There's a bunch of like gender stuff with this movie. Like if gender isn't a simple thing to you, it is like absolutely going to fucking destroy you as it did me. Like it just, the last shot of this movie is one of the most profoundly devastating things I've ever seen, and I loved it. It's an amazing looking movie. It just brims with like so much imagination and life and meaning, and I'm just so happy I saw it. If you haven't seen the director's previous work, we're all going to the World's Fair. Even less coherent, even more fucking strange. I don't like it as much as I saw the TV Glow, but it is also really worth seeing if you dig this movie. Oh man, the next movie I watched was The Leprechaun. I gave 5 stars, so I saw the TV Glow. The Leprechaun is a really beautiful horror movie, okay? It's like, it is about a little Irish leprechaun, and I just want to say, okay, leprechauns. I have never had a conversation with another Irish person about leprechauns. We don't talk about them. We don't really acknowledge them. I've never heard anything about them in Irish schools. Leprechauns is kind of something you guys do, and when I say you guys, I mean Americans. Yous kind of just have this idea of leprechauns and you kind of bolt them on to Irish shit for whatever reason. You guys seem kind of interested in them. Don't know what that's about. I support it. It's fine. But yeah. And this movie is about a spooky leprechaun, and it's fan-fucking-tastic. The leprechaun is played by Warwick Davis, and he is fantastic in it. A young pre-Friends Jennifer Aniston is also in this movie, and like honestly, you look at this movie and you immediately see that she is a star. Like, she's kind of just Jennifer Aniston in this movie, but she is so good. She is so alive and so just fun to watch, and I thought she was brilliant in it. And then she is super attractive. She's also in it with this other actor who is just like one of the most beautiful men I have seen in the longest time, and you're just looking at both of them being like, god damn, what an attractive couple. And then like Warwick Davis is so good as this malevolent, evil little leprechaun, and he's fucking brilliant. And I actually was reading up about the movie afterwards, and Warwick Davis actually credited this movie with bringing him out of a really dark time in his life. Professionally, things hadn't really gone his way, and him and his wife had actually recently suffered a miscarriage before this movie, and he said this movie gave him the creative outlet to kind of help process a lot of those feelings. And I thought that was really sad and beautiful, because like this movie was trashed by like a bunch of critics. People say it was like offensive and all this kind of stuff, and in terms of being Irish, like I wasn't offended by it. Like it's way too silly to get offended. I can't speak for in terms of like little people, maybe like something like this is offensive to little people, but I also look at Warwick Davis and he just seems to be having like a fucking phenomenal time, and he thinks so fondly of these movies still. So I don't know where that kind of where that leaves it. But all I know is I think this was a really fun, imaginative horror movie, and like there is an art to the schlocky horror movie. Like if you watch this movie and you say it's a bad movie because it's silly, I have to question like, what were you expecting out of it? Like I think at the end of the day, art has to live or die on the principles it is trying to execute on. You know, it's that same quote, the Mona Lisa is the worst automobile ever created. And this is an excellent schlocky horror movie. I gave it 4 stars. I'm going to watch all 8 Leprechaun movies for reasons that will become obvious in time. The next movie I saw this year, Terrifier 2. This is where I learned I really love Terrifier. Those movies are kind of divisive, and like people see them as exploitive and all this kind of stuff, and I'm not going to argue that. I think that's kind of fair. The first time I watched Terrifier 1, I was doing the Crunchyroll Awards, and they put me up in this hotel, and I just turned it on, and it was like on Netflix, and I was like, fuck it, I'll watch this. And I actually really enjoyed it. There's something about the vibe of Terrifier that I like. The music they use, the like kind of just the look of the films. I think there's something kind of special and weird about them, and I really felt that movie. Like, I know this is a weird thing to say, but it's the atmosphere of this movie that I just fucking love. I think there is something so special and strange about it, and I think Art the Clown is like a genuinely iconic horror character at this point. I think the level of hyper-violence that these movies portray is, I'm not going to say it's artfully done, I'm going to say it's very well done. The bedroom scene, like, and for the record, the entire plot of these movies is a clown is walking around killing people. And like, there is more to it than that. There is lore and stuff you can dig into, but that is essentially it. And the bedroom scene where Art just takes someone apart is one of the most violent and crazy things I've ever seen in a movie, but in a way I enjoy. To me, it was violent in the way a Mortal Kombat fatality is violent, where like I'm watching it and I'm going, ooh, but it's too ridiculous for me to really take it seriously. And I just appreciate the Terrifier movies as something distinctive and weird, and that I actually just really enjoy. They're shocking and they're exploitive, but they're not trying to be anything else, you know? So yeah, I love this movie. The next movie I saw was Cuckoo, and this is a horror movie where Hunter Schafer plays a girl visiting a weird resort in, I think, Amsterdam? And I really wanted to like this movie mainly because I loved Hunter Schafer so much. She is the girl from Euphoria and one of my favorite living actresses. I just think she is just one of the most stunningly beautiful humans I've ever seen. But she also just has like this quiet charisma that I don't think you can teach people. You know, there's something about her where like all she has to do is like walk into a room and it's really just hard not to look at her. And every scene she's in, like everything about like the way she acts, her little kind of mannerisms and expressions. She wears the most fucking iconic blue bomber jacket. She's amazing in this movie. And despite all that, I really had a tough time getting through this one. I just didn't find what it was doing interesting, and like when the kind of monster thing is revealed, I didn't really enjoy it. There's like a slow motion scene at the end of this movie that is just, honestly, I just found kind of like embarrassing in how contrived it was. And I wanted to like this movie, but I just didn't. I gave it 2 stars because there is, like, again, it's got a vibe. It's got Hunter Schafer. There's stuff to like here. It was not for me. It's definitely one of those movies that is way better, liked better by other people, but those other people aren't fucking here and it's not their list. Okay. Nearly there. Okay, so you see, I'm not really much of a Cuckoo person. I'm more of a Crow person. The next movie I watched is 1994's The Crow. I thought it was a good movie, a very good movie even. I think I don't know what I thought I was going to get from this movie, but I thought it would be a very self-serious or kind of just forgettable superhero movie. And what I was met with was one of the most endearing, earnest, and beautiful films I have ever seen. I loved it so much, and I'm not even being ironic. I loved it so much that I'm really glad I didn't see it when I was a teenager, because I think that would have complicated things. I think that would have complicated things a great deal. There's not one boring second in this whole movie, and there's a bit where someone asks the Crow, are they a clown? And the Crow responds, sometimes. Sometimes. 6 stars. The next movie I watched was Child's Play. I'd actually never watched Child's Play. I had never watched the original Chucky movie. and I watched it now and I really liked it. I think that's an incredibly well-made movie. If you ever go into like some of the makings of or some like the mechanics of how this movie was actually put together and the weird things they did with like forced perspective, it's really interesting. Personally, I don't think I've ever found Chucky itself like that interesting a monster. Like I like it. I think it's cool. It absolutely has its place in horror history. It doesn't do it for me like that much, but that said, like, this is a really fun movie. It's iconic for a reason. It started a franchise for a reason, and it's absolutely worth seeing. It's like a little terrifying doll does all kinds of murdery antics, and it's fun. It's really fun. I give it 4 stars. Another one that's going to lose a lot of you, I watched Inside Out 2, and I thought Anxiety was really good in this movie. I never need to watch another Pixar movie where a group of little guys have to get somewhere. I am so fucking tired of that, of just like, we have to journey across the dreamland and get the Flimmelflang and bring it back to the Horgismorph. Like, I just feel like that's so many fucking Pixar movies now, and I don't care. You know, I just don't care. And I think Inside Out 2 to me suffers because, like, you know, it's the sequel to Inside Out, and Inside Out came out X number of years ago, pre-Spider-Verse, basically turning 3D animation on its ass, and now I just feel like this is so dated and so, like, basic in kind of every way. I think something like Turning Red is such a better version of this movie, but, you know, I just didn't really enjoy it at all. I gave it 2 stars. I know that sounds harsh, but look, if I'm going to do these reviews, these are only interesting if I'm completely honest about what I think about any given movie. I'm sure a lot of you fucking love Inside Out. And again, Anxiety, loved her. Great character, but it just didn't do anything for me other than that. So yeah, that's what I gave it. The next movie I watched, Look Back. Look Back is the Tatsuki Fujimoto who made Chainsaw Man. It is a movie made out of his short Look Back, and it's beautiful. It is great. I love Look Back. I think it is one of the most profoundly sad things that Fujimoto has ever wrote. And I don't know, that dude, like, he just bleeds art. You know, like, I think he literally just can't help himself in creating these incredibly personal stories, and I feel like every time I read something of his, it's literally like he sliced off a little piece of himself and turned it into a comic, you know? And like, that's how I would love my videos to feel. Like, he is one of the most inspirational figures to me, in that, like, I think I always want my videos to feel personal and like something that couldn't have come from anywhere else. And I'm not saying I do that, I'm just saying it's what I aspire to be, and this is an animation made out of that. I think the things I really loved about this movie was that in the movie, it's about these 2 girls creating comics together. And I specifically love the parts of this movie that takes those comics and animates them in these really crazy and beautiful ways. And that, to me, was kind of the magic here. Now, the rest of the movie I thought was really good, but I don't think the rest of it really elevated the comic in any meaningful way. But I also thought the comic was already kind of a masterpiece in how it worked and how it used the medium of comics, so adapting that was already going to be really, really difficult. But even like that small criticism aside, you know, this movie just hits you like a ton of bricks. And when you know, extrapolate it onto like what it's based on, what happened at KyoAni Studios, like it is devastating. And I loved it. You know, like this was an effortless 5 stars. Like it was a beautiful movie. Next we had Immaculate, and Immaculate is the Sydney Sweeney nun horror movie, which I really liked. Sydney Sweeney being another one of those actors I have a soft spot for. I love her in Euphoria. I think she's fucking brilliant, and I love her character that she plays in that, where like she is just so hopeless and such an idiot and just so like just trying her best. And I thought she was pretty good in this as well. This is a movie about a nun who goes to a convent. Shit is spooky, shit is weird. It is incredibly shot. God damn, this movie looks so good. I think my only criticism of it would be that like it's nearly an amazing movie. It's nearly great, and it never quite gets there. So yeah, I think I would like it was very much like it was very much Rosemary's Baby in a convent again. And while I thought like the execution that was good, I think it's just steps away from like really doing its own thing and becoming its own movie, and just it doesn't quite get there. But that doesn't take away from the fact that like the act of watching it was really super enjoyable and I had a good time. So yeah, 4 stars. The next movie I watched was Aliens. And Aliens I had never seen before. I had never watched the entire movie front to back. And yeah, like, what do you want me to say? This is, like, Aliens is an iconic movie for a reason. The characters, the aliens themselves, it's just fucking brilliant. I never knew that Vasquez existed. I feel like if Vasquez existed now, she would be everywhere. That is fucking Rhea Ripley from like a 1980s sci-fi movie, and it's great. It's really, really good. It has, I think, one of the best final scenes of any like horror movie, and it's just so raw and tense and frightening, and I thought it was a great movie. It doesn't have like a bit of like fat on the bone. It's go right from the beginning, and it's just an incredible movie that like I come out of it being like, well, I have the exact same horribly boring opinion as everyone else about this movie. It's great, even in 2024. I don't think it's really aged much at all. Oh, okay. The next movie is a movie that it's the only movie that scored a particular score this year. I haven't given this score to any other movie, and that score is NA. Because I got 20 minutes into this movie and couldn't fucking do it. And that movie is Deadpool and Wolverine. I know people like this movie. I get it. This movie is not for me. I don't give a fuck. I don't care about Marvel. I like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and I like the character of Deadpool. I hated every second of this movie. I felt like I was pushing through concrete watching this movie, and after 20 minutes I turned to Michelle and I was like, bro, I can't do it. I can't watch this movie, and I just had to turn it off. Because of that, I don't think it's fair that I give it a rating, but yeah, just absolutely did nothing for me. Maybe I'm just not fun. No, it's the children who are not fun. The next movie I watched was the Netflix airport thriller Carry On, which I did have to look up before I gave this review because I couldn't remember what film it was, despite watching it maybe 2 months ago, which is kind of the best review I could probably give this movie. But no, like it's not a bad movie at all. It's an airport thriller where a airport worker gets kind of manipulated by a terrorist, and the terrorist is like, you're gonna do this thing and drop this package here, and I'm not gonna tell you why, or I'm gonna fucking kill your girlfriend or whatever. And it's about him trying to get out of it. And this movie ain't swinging for the stars. There's nothing like especially noteworthy about it, but it's a fun thriller. It moves at a decent pace. It kept me watching, and I was like, yeah, okay, how's he gonna get out of this one? And like, again, it's a Sunday afternoon movie. If you need something just to kill 2 hours, this is all right. Like, this is kind of fun. Again, nothing groundbreaking, but decent. I gave it 3 stars. The next movie is one of my favorite movies of all time, and one of the greatest movies of all time. This next movie is a movie about suffering. It's a movie about struggling to exist in a world that does not want you to. It's a movie about doing everything you can for the people you love, despite a universe that just seems constantly against you. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and the movie I've watched maybe 30 or 40 times, and that's not an exaggeration. That is literally how many times I've watched it. It is Jingle All the Way. The Arnold Schwarzenegger Christmas vehicle about a man seeking to find a action figure for his son. and all the beauty and tragedy that unfolds as he does. And Arnold Schwarzenegger gives a powerhouse performance here, and a reel of a man who is so caught between his desire to achieve and his will to do right by his family. It encapsulates everything about the American dream, everything about capitalism, everything about our society, everything that is wrong. And it's a profoundly beautiful movie, and one that I can't wait to watch 40 more times. 6 stars. Tiny Toons My Summer Vacation. Tiny Toons My Summer Vacation is the movie of the Tiny Toons, which I had not watched since I was a kid. I remember this film being really cool and weird, and I went back and watched it, and lo and behold, it's really cool and weird. This is such an imaginative and fun movie. I really think like there's so much about it that just hasn't aged, in that like how weird and strange it is, and like how the moments of the movie that absolutely become not a kids movie. There's this fantastic sequence where Plucky Duck, son of Daffy Duck, I don't know, is in a car with the Porky Pig family, and they pick up a serial killer, and it is such a nightmare, and Plucky Duck knows this guy is a serial killer, and none of the rest of them even have any idea, and it is great. It is such a fun movie, and I really enjoyed it. If you want to see like a weird animation, and you like kids media, you like Looney Tunes, absolutely worth checking out. I give it 4 stars. Sonic 3. I saw Sonic 3 this year. It fucking rules. I like the Sonic movies. I thought the first movie was good, and then I thought the second movie was weirder and better, and then I loved this movie. I thought its take on Shadow the Hedgehog was incredible. Shadow the Hedgehog is a character I love. I like Metal Sonic better, and have taken a lot of flack for liking Metal Sonic better. The children, they called me a boomer when I said that. But look, fuck it, I don't care. I think Shadow the Hedgehog is awesome, and I think his portrayal in this movie was fantastic. Michelle now has a favorite Sonic the Hedgehog character, and it is Shadow the Hedgehog, and with good reason, because I thought this movie was a blast. I thought it had so much heart, and I thought it was like the action scene, the fight between Sonic and Shadow. I said, oh fuck, out loud in the cinema by accident. I was so into this fight. I thought it was brilliant. I'm not going to talk the post-credits reveal, but for a moment, I thought we were getting one character, and then it turns out we were getting another. I was disappointed. Jim Carrey is great in this movie. It's just a really fun movie, and I was, even though like I like the Sonic movies, I think this did like surpass my expectations a little bit. I gave it 4 stars. And the final movie I watched this year, Terrifier 3. Terrifier 3 is the Christmas sequel to Terrifier 2. And I liked it. I thought it was great. I maybe felt like it was just missing a little bit of that intangible X factor that was Terrifier 2. I think Terrifier 2 is a special movie. I think it is like one of those kind of lightning strike movies where it just all feels so magical and succinct and garbagey, but in the best way possible. And Terrifier 3 I still really enjoyed. There's a sequence with a present in a shopping mall that absolutely blew me away, and I thought it was a lot of fun. I just didn't quite enjoy it as much as Terrifier 2. Now that said, there's so much stuff to enjoy here. Watching Art the Clown prance around as Santa Claus, and watching how much that horrifying character loves Christmas is just such a delight. I don't remember the name of the dude who plays Art the Clown, but he is fucking fantastic, and he just got to stretch his legs so much in this movie. I really enjoyed it. Michelle has not forgiven me for making her sit through it, but you know what? I loved it. And guys, that is all 64 horror movies I watched this year. I hope you enjoyed this video. Wanted to try something a little different. And again, just to say, I have this exact same video except for books, and this exact same video except for video games over on my Patreon. And if we get enough people, enough requests, I might do the same for like TV shows I watched last year, if I have that list, which I think I do. Patreon.com/Super Eye Patch Wolf. I love you guys. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.